Assalamu alaikum, rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace and blessings upon each and every one who hears or sees this video. My name is Kenny Bomer. My Muslim name is Mujahid Al-Islam. Creating this video to drop the hammer and expose the lies, the bigotry, the prejudice of the one who calls himself Christian Prince, who hides behind his computer and doesn't show his face, doesn't give his real name, and basically leading people astray by spreading lies and deception about Islam, attacking Islam every single day as though he has some emotional reason for doing so, like he's just a crazed lunatic, as though the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ has done something wrong to him, and which is quite crazy. It's signs of someone who's mentally insane, someone who's unstable and just when you attack someone for no reason whatsoever, attack a religion, a whole religion, for no reason whatsoever, every single day, in just absolute rage, just on and on and on, over and over again, every single day, all emotional as someone would be if they were actually truly mentally insane. And when you a person who hates so passionately that you get enraged by it, then that is the signs of someone who is mentally unstable. And so before I go any further, I want to bear witness there's no God other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our God, our creator, who has no partners and no equals. And I bear witness that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, peace and blessing be upon him, is his final servant and the seal of all prophets. So let me give you a brief history. Recently, I've been calling into Christian Prince's channel. Once again, he does this every single day, attacking Islam. And I hear some of the stuff that he says, and it's like, come on, man. You just blatantly just spreading hatred, hatred breeding more hatred. And so we have atheists that are watching his program, and so-called Christians watching this so-called Christian on his program, and just spreading hatred and prejudice and bigotry for what? What are you trying to accomplish? What are you trying to achieve in your life? And steadily just attacking Islam. And so I've called a couple of times, and the last time I called, I did lose my temper. I do want to apologize for anyone who heard that. I did say something that I am ashamed of, and I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive me and to give me sabr, give me patience and forgiveness. And, it's just a sign that, no one is perfect, and we all have work that we have to do on ourselves. And it showed me that when I'm dealing with people such as this character, it's going to require jihad, which is struggling and striving in oneself to live in the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So dealing with Christian Prince for me is jihad. What's my Muslim name? Mujahid Al-Islam, one who struggles and strives in the cause of Allah. Struggles and strives for what? To be in the obedience of Allah, to spread the beauty of Islam. And so I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts my effort to spread the beauty of Islam. And I ask him to forgive me for any mistakes that I made. So let's get started. So I called in to his program yesterday, to his channel, to his live broadcast, and heard him saying, I didn't come on till the end there, and I heard him talking about the many wives of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in hypocrisy, because in doing so, he's trying to point out and trying to suggest that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam had these multiple wives for sex, but overlooking the fact that the prophets of the Bible had numerous wives, way more wives than the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And I'm not speaking bad about any of the prophets, as it's mentioned in the Bible. Peace and blessing be upon each and every one of the prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But I do want to point something out. Let me bring this up out of my personal notes, because I've actually discussed this before. Many wives of the Bible. Faithful Abraham says, Abraham, the father of faith, the first Jew, was married to Sarah, Hagar, and Keturah. And Abraham also had many concubines who bore him many sons. You can read about this in Genesis 11:29, 16:3, 25:1, Chronicles first chapter, verse 32, and Zilpah. And there's the scriptures there, Genesis Bible. That Jacob actually says Jacob wrestled God and defeated God. A Christian website. These are Christian sayings. Had many wives in 2 Samuel 3, 2 through 5, and also it's mentioned in 5:13. It says, God selectively grants multiple wives to those who have true mighty call from God, who have accepted all the call from God fully, and who are moved not by compulsion of the flesh, but by the Holy Spirit. This is Christian writings here. But I want to go down to something. It says this is supposedly God, our Creator, talking to David in the Bible, and it says, I anointed you king over my people. Right here, it says, I anointed you king over my people and gave you your master's daughters and your master's wives into your bosom. And I also gave you the daughters of Israel and Judah. And if there were too few for you, you should have told me, and I would have added twice that many to you. So what does it say? And if they were too few, you should have told me, and I would have added to you twice that many. And you can read about that in 2 Samuel chapter 12, verse 7 through 8. And that's in the original Aramaic Bible. Gideon, it says, the prophet Gideon, peace and blessing be upon him, says, God bless mighty Gideon, the polygamist, and the angel of the Lord. It says, and the angel of the Lord appeared unto him and said unto him, the Lord is with thee, you mighty man of valor. And it says, and Gideon had 60. Look how many children he had. It says, Gideon had 60 sons of his body begotten, for he had many wives. And so it just goes on. Elkanah, Samuel, 700 wives and concubines, once again to Solomon. Peace and blessing be upon all the prophets. Abraham, Jacob, Moses, Gideon, David, Solomon, Elkanah, and many other chosen beloved patriarchs and servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had many wives. And this is all based on what is revealed in the Bible. So wives, overlooking the fact that in the Bible they've had far more wives than the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, by far. Praise be to Allah for the truth. And so this is his side, and I'm just going to let you see what it says here. I actually have audio of just the last portion where I was on. Of course, I could always, let me just fast forward and see if we can pick it up.
I tell you, where are you from?
Okay, that's when he's talking to someone else.
Divorce. I remember once, someone, she asked me that she's going to get married. She said to me,
okay, I'm not actually on the program yet.
Once
I'm at the end here.
Numbers, except me, I did not give any numbers, and I said, this is impossible to solve.
Okay, keep listening.
Well, you know, for that
okay, I'm fixing to come on here in a second. I actually had called in. Actually called him and on Skype, and he called me back. So he's talking to this other brother who is actually saying that he was he's a former Muslim, and he's been led astray by this Christian prince. Listen.
He saw it into the hearts of Muslim people. He saw that.
The
difference between God, I made a verse and say, God told me go and marry.
Okay, let me back it up just a little bit.
Yeah, just like the topic you're talking about, to apologize for.
Okay, this should be me.
Because they know that I've been trying to debate Christians. Where I'm going, even if I die. I mean, disregard. Yeah, just like the person against you. For me,
okay,
I want to share it.
Bear with me. Okay, so here we go.
Well, about knowing the Messiah, I think we have a Muslim trying to call. Let us see. Hello? Walaikum assalam, Mr. Ibrahim. Is that Ken? I wanted to apologize for.
Okay, so from the beginning, I had to call in with a different name because he blocked me. He's done this multiple times, because he doesn't want the truth to be told. So he blocks me, he mutes me, he speaks over me, he interrupts me. He does this to many Muslims, and so just keep listening.
The comment that I made during the last call. I want to apologize to you and your listeners. No problem. Certainly wasn't. So what do you want to say to us, Mr. Kim? Well, I just want to mainly call to apologize for my choice of words, and I sincerely do apologize about that. Did you decide to angry at that moment, and hadn't said anything like that in really years at this point. No problem. No problem. I'm not angry from you. Trust me. I have nothing personal against you. For me, I want to say the truth, and that's all.
Okay, he said he has nothing personal against me, but keep listening. You'll see that that doesn't seem to be the case later on.
I don't know you, you do not know me, so take it easy. Now,
right, we don't know you because you hide behind a mask of the internet and the World Wide Web, and you don't reveal your true identity. And so therefore you are very bold in the things that you say, and it's truly hypocritical.
What do you think about what I said to you before? Did you check it out? Did you find it truthful, or was lying to you? Well, you know, I'm not certainly not in agreement with things that you said. Bear with me for my phone. Disregarded. Yeah, just like the topic that you're talking about today, I think you are being quite a bit hypocritical, and I don't argue with you. Why? I'd rather have a dialogue with you than have actual true conversation. Okay, tell me why you are saying that. Why? What is wrong with what I say? Well, in regards to the number of wives in Islam, first there's stipulations behind it, but I think that you also. What is behind it? Tell me what is behind it. What is behind it? Well, we'll get to that in a second, but I want to point out the fact that in the Bible, the Prophet Ibrahim, he had 3 wives. Okay. Solomon had 1,000 wives. Okay. Jacob had why Ibrahim he married more than one wife? Why he have more than one wife? What was the purpose? He had 3 wives. He actually had 3 wives. Why he married more than one wife? Why? Well, it's no different. What do you mean? What different? No, hold on. There's a huge difference between God. I made a verse and say, God told me go and marry 2 or 3 and 4. And me, because I have a desire for something like to have a kid, and I marry the second one because the first one is not giving me the kid.
Okay, so what he's trying to do here, he's trying to make the excuse for the Prophet Ibrahim Al-Islam, peace and blessing be upon Abraham, in regards to the fact that he was trying to have a child with his wife Sarah, may Allah be pleased with her. And but you know, that's just the Prophet Abraham and his circumstances. But why would the Prophet Solomon, peace and blessing be upon him, have 1,000 wives and concubines? 1,000? And so you want to criticize the Prophet of Allah when the final messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when there were prophets, numerous prophets in the Bible itself that have had many more wives than the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What was their reason for having 1,000 wives and concubines, and just on and on and on?
This was his private opinion, not God saying to him, "Go and marry." Now, you're a prophet. How many wives did you're a prophet? He make it legitimate for him not only to marry more than what he told the Muslims. He told them to marry 4, right? He don't even want to. You don't want even to follow his own God law. So you say to them marry 4, but you marry a limited number. You say this is hypocrisy.
For one, there's stipulations involved in how many wives that Muslims can take. You have to be able to give to all of them equally. That means financially, emotionally, not spiritually, but you know, in all aspects of their lives. So if you have one wife that you've had 2 children with, well, you have a responsibility to give 2 children to the other wife, because it needs to be fair. If you but if you married one wife and you lived in poverty and then you became wealthy, it's not fair to her if you take another wife and she gets the blessing of the wealth, but she wasn't there to endure the poverty with you. And just there's so many different stipulations that makes it almost impossible to have more than one wife. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that if we can't do justice to all of the wives equally, then it's best to just have one. And you can find that in the Quran. It's there. It's plain to see. So anyone who's listening, if you're a one who attacks Islam, find the truth. The truth is really easy to find if you have a true desire to look for it. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen.
There's a reason for it. What is the reason? What is the reason? Tell us. What is the reason? What is the reason? Well, during the period of Jahiliyyah, for one, I want to correct something that you did say in regards to how women were treated and how children were treated. For one, the newborn female infant. That's false. That's false.
So he knew what I was going to say before I even said it. He started saying it was false whenever he heard me say the newborn female infant, and he knew I was going to say was buried alive, because this is the actual historical fact. This is the truth. This is the fact of the matter. And he already knew what I was going to say because he heard it before. So that means that he actually knows what the truth is, but he's purposely distorting and deceiving people and leading people astray, even though he does have a knowledge. He knew what I was going to talk about.
False. That's false. That's actually okay. If this is true, okay, hold on. If this is true, can you prove it to us? What your listeners can do is can you prove it to me? No, I know what your Muslims say. This is false, my friend. The Quran verse it says, "What is al mawuda?" Su'ila. Mawuda is the spirit of the person who died. The person who died was killed. Why you are killed? So this is about the judgment. They will Allah supposedly will ask the person who is honest and he was killed. Why you be killed? Have nothing to do with we male female.
Okay, he's saying that when Allah asked the innocent person, the innocent child that was buried alive, why was the child killed? He's saying that it doesn't have anything to do with it. I don't know where his logic is in that. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that on the day of judgment, he's going to ask the newborn children that were buried alive, why? He's going to ask them in front of those who buried them alive, why is it you were buried? Why was it that you were killed? What wrong did you do to deserve this punishment? And of course, there's a purpose behind it. It's so that the person who actually did the killing can feel the conviction of taking the lives of these innocent children, burying them alive for the simple fact of their gender. And so, of course, Christian Prince doesn't think on that level, and he did not want me to answer the question. And if he knows that answer already, he doesn't want his listeners to know that answer, because he's absolutely leading them astray. It's the blind leading the blind.
Otherwise, let me ask you. Did the father of Khadija bury her, or she was a businesswoman?
Well, obviously, the father of Khadija didn't bury her. Obviously, she was a businesswoman. That's ridiculous. I never did make the claim that all of the women were buried alive. All the females were buried alive. That's absolutely ridiculous. It's once again, his logic is in question.
She was absolutely a businesswoman. It didn't say that every female infant was buried alive. Okay, so what do you mean? Not everybody, but can you give an example? Okay, listen. Actually, sex slaves. Okay, hold on. Go ahead.
See, he doesn't want me to talk right there, right? That's one of his tactics. He just want to keep interrupting. He doesn't want the truth to be told.
Muhammad owned sex slaves. There were sex slaves. The women were sex slaves. Muhammad owned. No, this is not true. This is not true.
He's saying that women weren't sex slaves during the period of Jahiliyyah, the age of ignorance. Indeed, they were sex slaves. They were routinely seen around the Kaaba just totally naked. They were totally used as commodities, to where if one man owed another man a debt, the man that owed the debt would give his wife to pay the debt, because women weren't respected. Women were just used as currency, basically, and they were looked upon, as very low individuals. They weren't respected at all, and therefore the newborn infant child that was a female would be buried alive because they seen it as a curse. They did not want to have daughters because they did not have respect for women at that time. Islam actually uplifts the status of women and allows them to have property and allows them an education and freedom to speak their mind and fairness and being free of being oppressed in any form or fashion, physically, mentally, or emotionally. Islam protects and maintains and honors the woman. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen.
Not true. The women in Jahiliyyah, the women before Islam used to marry more than one man. She is the boss. And your prophet used to work for a woman. And she.
Now, what does it matter if he worked for Khadija? May Allah be pleased with her. That was, for one, if you consider what was taking place, there was women were used as sex slaves, but the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he could have had all these young women, but he wasn't known for being that type of a man. He married a woman that was much older than him. She was 40, he was 25 years old, and she actually asked him to marry her because she respected him, and he did some good business transactions for her, and he was very well respected in the community, and he could have been running around with all these women, but he was not doing so.
She is the boss. No. That was a very out of the ordinary set of circumstances. What do you mean? What do you mean out of ordinary? This is false.
What I meant by that is that Khadija, unlike most of the women, she was actually a businesswoman. She had her own property. She had her own money. She was well off. Whereas most of the women, the vast majority of the women, were just, utilized as sex slaves, utilized at the hands of men to do the bidding of men.
This is false. Your prophet, you're a prophet who used to hide from his uncle wife, not from the uncle. The uncle wife is more strong than the uncle because she is the boss. So you're a prophet, he used to hide from her. She used to go after him and sing for him and make fun of him. She was the boss. She is not a sex slave. Name for me one sex slave that existed at the time of Muhammad. You can remember. Can you remember?
Why would I know the names of the sex slaves in the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? That's actually a ridiculous question, and what he's trying to do is trying to divert. He's trying to make me look as though I have no knowledge, whereas that type of question has no relevance to it. It doesn't matter the names of these women. What is that going to do? If I said, okay, there was Veronica, there was Susie, and there was Janie, that they lived during the times of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they were sex slaves. What does that matter? It doesn't matter what their names were. That's beside the point. He's just trying to divert the topic using red herrings.
I can't name you any sex slaves. So why you are saying there are sex slaves if there is none? None of them are sex slaves. This is false, my friend. This is false. Islam makes us sex slaves.
So if you think this is false, if you think Christian Prince, if you're one of his puppets on a string, and you're being led around by strings by the puppet master straight into the fire of hell, then I suggest that you look into this situation yourself, look into this information yourself, and you will see that before Islam in Arabia, these women were looked down upon and they were utilized as sex slaves, period. And that's a fact. So this is something that is easy to access. You have the internet right there at your fingertips. Go to legitimate Muslim sources and not Islamophobic, hate-filled, prejudiced, bigoted websites or individuals to get your information. You got to go to a true Islamic source and you will see what the truth is. Alhamdulillah.
Let me ask you, did Muhammad receive gifts for sex? Did Muhammad receive gifts, women for sex? I don't know anything about that. Who is Mary? Don't talk about this. Who is Mary the cook? Was she a gift?
Right there, I was actually trying to figure out what he said. I couldn't understand what he said.
I not hear you. Who is Mary the cook? Was she a gift or not? The status of women. Was she a gift? Was she a gift? You was breaking up on me. I don't understand. I said, Mary the cook, was she a gift given to Muhammad? Was she a gift? Did he receive her as a gift? And he accept the gift? She's a slave, yes or no? Do you hear me? Hello?
Okay, so I was losing signal right there. I couldn't understand what he was saying.
Hello? I'm not down for some reason this. Yeah, you are using many. You need to close your applications. I'm asking you. Was Mary, the cooked, the gift was given to your prophet? Yes or no? And he accepted the gift. You see, when a Muslim try to defend, he fabricates stuff.
I don't know what he's suggesting that I fabricated. It's really ridiculous. Keep listening.
Yes. Yeah. So did your prophet? Yeah, no problem. Did your prophet receive women as gift, and he accept the gift? Yes or no? I don't know anything about that. You never heard of Mary? You never heard of Mary? You never heard of Mary the cook? You never heard? I have no knowledge of that. So okay, hold on. So you told me before that you are an imam in the mosque and you teach the Muslims, but you never heard about Mary the cook. I have no knowledge of that right there. No, I do not. Never. Okay, what about Safiya? Was she a woman get raped by your prophet in the same day he killed her family? Prophet Muhammad did not rape anyone. What do you mean? The story, I can show you the story right now. Do you want to show you? I know what story you're talking about. No, you do not know the story. You just say he did not rape anyone. You just.
Okay, notice that I am telling him that I am familiar with this hadith. Safiya, her husband and her father were killed in the battle. And watch how many times, about 9 or 10 times, I'm going to tell him that I'm familiar with this story. And I'm trying to explain this story to him. And he keeps interrupting me over and over and over again. Keep listening.
Say he did not rape anyone. The man, he killed her family in the same day he raped her. Yes or no? Are you saying to me that this woman, after he killed her father and her brother, same day, before even they arrived to Mecca, she took off her panty and she said with the prophet?
I didn't say anything like put all those words in my mouth, and he tried to insinuate that I was making such a claim. Keep listening.
Are you saying that? I didn't say anything like that. So the story says that. The story says that Muhammad, after he killed her tribe, he took her and then they make a tent in the way, and then in the tent he slept with her and he raped her. And there's a guy who was guarding the prophet. The prophet, he went out. He said, "Why you are here?" He said, I was worried. You killed her father, you killed her brother, you killed her husband, you killed her tribe, you killed her family. I was worried she would do something wrong to you." The prophet smiled. So what do you call that? The same day he killed her family. You think a woman, she will sleep with a man. You killed her family and your husband, and she was a bride. Do you think this is true? In Islam. Don't tell me in Islam. Don't tell me in Islam. You see, again, this is why I don't like to talk to you. Talk like a kid. I'm asking you.
How is me saying in Islam when I was trying to explain something to him, and in his frustration, he doesn't want me to say in Islam such and such. He's making the claim that I'm talking like a kid. I'm not sure exactly what it is that I would have said that was childlike. It's really ridiculous for him to make such a statement. Really, what all he's trying to do is once again divert and use ad hominems, trying to attack, and just keep listening.
Is that a true story or not? I can show you the hadith right now. I'm talking like a kid. You haven't even let me. You're not answering. You're not answering. I'm talking about the fact. Answer me about the fact. Don't tell me in Islam. I'm giving you a story. I'm giving you a story from your reference. Listen.
Notice how excited he's getting. Notice how frustrated he's getting. And I'm trying to stay calm, trying to be patient, trying not to get worked up, trying not to allow the whisperings of Shaitan to take over, because the man is insulting, he is rude, he is arrogant, and I'm just trying to be patient, and you'll notice that he gets worse and worse as we keep going. Watch.
Listen, I like to talk to a girl. Is this a story written in the hadith? Is this a story written in the hadith? Is it fabricated or true story? Listen.
Don't tell me listen. I want an answer. Answer first. Is this a story in the hadith written by you Muslims? So I want you to answer me. I want you to answer me. I don't care if you get upset or not. That's not my business. You can get upset. Now answer me. Is this a story in the hadith? Is it true? Okay, you explain for me. Go ahead. What happened? Did he?
Okay, this is jihad. And striving in the cause of Allah, to be in the obedience of Allah. This man trying to push my buttons right here. You know, he's trying to cause me to be angry. He's actually angry himself. He's frustrated himself, and he doesn't want me to speak the truth. He doesn't want me to say what he knows that I'm going to say, so therefore he keeps interrupting. Doesn't matter what I'm going to say, he's going to interrupt me. Keep listening.
Don't tell me in Islam. Don't tell me in Islam. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear in Islam because you know nothing about Islam. You just told me you never heard of Mary the Cook. I never heard of somebody who claimed to be a Muslim. You never heard of someone whose name is Mary the Cook.
I actually don't know what he's saying right there. Mary the Cook?
Okay. So now don't tell me in Islam. Don't tell me in Islam then. Tell me about the story in the hadith. Have you ever heard the story before?
I know of the story.
Okay, read the story for me. I accuse you. You see, I'm not calling names. I accuse you to be a liar. Otherwise, tell me the story. Which hadith we can find, which book? Do you know?
Look.
Do you know which book of hadith? Do you know which book of hadith?
I'll pause there because I don't like how he's talking to me. I don't appreciate it. And I'm trying to keep my composure and not allow, you know, myself to say anything that I don't want to say. You know, I want to be a good Muslim. I want to try to represent Islam in the best of manners. And I'm trying to be patient in the way this man's talking to me. And so I've already answered that question for him about this hadith the third or fourth time at this point. And he asked me again, so I'm like being, you know, trying to take time, take a deep breath, be conscious about what I'm going to say to him. And he just keeps on and on watching.
You said you know, but now you do not know. Now you don't know, guys. Do you see? He is not expert. Now he is not expert, but you are telling me about in Islam. How you know about Islam, but you are not expert? So who are you?
I'm someone that can answer every question that you pose.
How you can answer, but you told me I'm not expert. You just told me I'm not expert. So you are. So you are. Listen. You are the expert. You are the expert who have no answer. That's what you are saying.
I didn't say no. I'm not an expert.
Okay, then answer me. Which book of hadith is correct? And what is the story saying? Read it for me.
The Jahiliyyah, the women were viewed as sex.
Listen, don't tell me about Jahiliyyah now. This is your prophet. He is the Jahiliyyah himself. Answer me. Why your prophet raped Safiya in the same day? If you say this is not true, read the hadith for me. Prove me wrong.
He did not rape her in the same way.
Read the story for me. Read the story for me.
In Islam.
Don't tell me in Islam. Shut up. Don't tell me in Islam. You do not know anything about Islam. I'm giving you a story. Read the story. Read the story. This is the woman. Listen, Abdul.
You notice how rude he is, how childish he is, how unchristian-like he is. And so I'm trying to explain, I can explain this hadith to him in full detail if he would allow me time to speak. Just plain and simply, allow me time to speak. What it is, he wants to dictate how the answers come. So sometimes he'll ask a question and try to mold the answer in the manner in which he wants it to be given. And whenever he sees you not doing that, and I've told him numerous times, I'm not going to answer the way you want me to answer. I'm going to answer the way I want to answer. I'm going to answer truthfully. I'm not going to answer the way you want me to answer. I'm not going to say what you want me to say. I'm going to answer with the truth. But he doesn't want the truth to be heard, so therefore he distorts it and he interrupts. He, you know, calls names and acts very childish. And you'll see.
Abdul, you are the one who I gave you the hadith about a man. He did beat his wife until her skin became greener, and you are the one who said the prophet did not say intercourse, and then I get you busted. So he said to her, you have to have intercourse with him. So he allowed, okay, so he allowed rape, and you apologize for that. I understand. Now answer. What is the story? Then tell me the story. Don't tell me in Islam. I want you to repeat for me the story. Read for us the story. I'm listening. How your prophet, when the first day he slept with the women, her name is Safiya. I'm listening.
What you're doing is you're creating what's called a red herring.
Don't tell me, Mr. Red Herring.
You're giving a
Mr. Red Herring, you are a kojak. You don't even have hair to make red herring for you. Now answer.
He said I'm a kojak. For one, okay, I do use clippers on my hair. I do cut my hair pretty much all the way off. Am I losing hair? Absolutely, and that's a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that doesn't faze me at all. As a matter of fact, to lose hair and to grow old and to have gray hair and your body doesn't work the same and all these things is actually a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a reminder to us that we're not going to live forever. It's a reminder to us that we're growing old and that the day of judgment is approaching. It's a reminder to us that we need to go to prayer. We need to ask for forgiveness. It's a reminder to us about all of those things. So all of these things are mercy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when someone is growing old. So Christian Prince, if you think that talking about my hairstyle is something that phases me, it surely doesn't. And that's very childish. It's very childish. And not only do you do it, but your puppets do the same thing. Make just ridiculing comments, just unnecessary comments. And I told you at the beginning of the conversation when I called, I'd like to have just a simple conversation with you, just an open conversation, peaceful conversation with good dialogue, and didn't call to argue with you, and yet you were arguing every step of the way. Keep listening. Let's go back to it.
Read the story for me. Don't waste your time and my time. What about read the story? Go right away to the business. Read the story for us.
Muhammad was
read the story for us. Read the story for us.
I don't have the hadith. I'm just looking at my laptop.
Okay, in the hadith, I will help you. In that hadith, what do you know about it? What do you know about the hadith?
Her husband and her father were killed in the battle.
Which battle?
Because she is now I don't remember the name of that particular battle.
You don't remember?
But because so that's irrelevant. Because there was a battle, her husband and father were killed.
Okay, listen, I don't have time for kids. I don't have time for kids. You see, that's why I don't try to talk to you. That's why you keep changing your name, making fake names because you are fake. Listen, this is the hadith.
Okay, so I changed my name once again to call in because he blocked me, and so as you notice, look what's on the screen. He's got the hadith up. It's all in Arabic, but his readers, they don't read Arabic. The vast majority of his readers, if any of them, they don't read Arabic, and so they don't know what he's saying. Matter of fact, they don't know the complexity of the Arabic language, where words have multiple meanings. And so the word for consummation of marriage, where a man has sex with his wife after marriage, is, it can mean he had sex, he laid with her, so it can have multiple meanings, but one thing that it does not mean is rape. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not rape Safiya. Let me prove it. You want me to prove it with the hadith? Watch this. Okay, so why did Prophet Muhammad marry Safiya before the prescribed Iddah period? The Iddah period is the period of menstruation. It says, answered, to begin with, it is narrated by Anas bin Malik. The Prophet ﷺ came to Kaaba, and when Allah made him victorious and he conquered the town by breaking the enemy's defense, the beauty of Safiya bint Huyah bin Akhtab was mentioned to him, and her husband had been killed while she was a bride. Allah's Messenger ﷺ selected her for himself, and he set out in her company till he reached Sa'd al-Rawah, where her menstrual cycle was over, and he married her after her menstrual cycle. Okay, so let's go down. Let's go to the next one. So, you can go on and read there. I can post the link if you'd like. It says, secondly, in Islam, what? In Islam? What does Christian Prince think about about that statement there. he doesn't want me to say in Islam. Okay, anyway, so secondly, in Islam, when a person becomes the owner of a female prisoner of war, of course, there's no prisoners of war, there's no slavery at this point, alhamdulillah. It says, secondly, in Islam, when a prisoner becomes the owner of a female, when a person becomes the owner of a female prisoner of war, before he is able to be intimate with her, he is required to ensure that she is not pregnant. The method of this is by waiting until she completes one menstrual cycle, and thereafter it will be permissible for her. It'll be permissible for the two to be intimate. Okay. Thirdly, initially Safiya, may Allah be pleased with her, was taken as a prisoner of war before the Prophet of Allah, peace and blessing be upon him, married her. Hence, after completing only one menstrual cycle, she was permitted for the Prophet of Allah, peace and blessing be upon him, to marry her and to be intimate with her. In the hadith, the phrase, I'm not sure exactly what that says. I can't see it. It says is used. It says the Arabic linguist Ibn Athir has stated that this phrase is used when a husband consummates the marriage with his wife. It doesn't mean that the husband raped his wife. It says we learned from this after Safiya had completed her menstrual cycle. The Prophet, peace blessed be upon him, had definitely married her and thereafter consummated the marriage. So he married her and then he consummated the marriage. It is also narrated, Allah's messenger, peace by Anas, it says Allah's messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam freed Safiya and then married her, and her mar was her manumission, and he gave a wedding banquet with has, which is a sort of sweet dish from butter, cheese, and dates. And so, anyways, it says the conclusion: the normal iddah period, which is prescribed to a divorced woman, does not apply here as Safiya. May Allah be pleased with her. Her situation was different, with her initially being a prisoner of war. She wasn't divorced; she was a prisoner of war, so the circumstances are different. They have to wait for one menstrual cycle. In this day and age, as slavery is scarce, the Islamic laws surrounding them have also become uncommon, and therefore can sometimes lead one to confusion if they are not aware of them. And so, once again, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, did he consummate the marriage with his wife? Absolutely. Did he rape his wife? No, he did not. And to make such a claim is just a blatant lie.